Alright, so the third type of meaning, we have done denotative meaning, connotative meaning, now stylistic meaning. Stylistic meaning is that which a piece of language conveys about the circumstances of its use. A recent account of English has recognized some main dimensions of stylistic variation. For instance, they chucked a stone at the cops and then did a bunk with the loot. Second sentence, after casting a stone at the police, they absconded with the money. Sentence 1 could be said by the two criminals talking casually about the crime afterwards. Sentence 2 might be said by the chief of the police in making the official report. Both could describe the same happening. Stylistic meaning, as the name suggests, it has to do with the talking style, natural inflection, accent and colloquialism that you add along with the circumstance that you are describing, along with the designation that you have. Were you in the incident? Were you looking at the incident as a bystander? And your observations regarding the same. So let's go over it again. Stylistic meaning is that which a piece of language conveys about the circumstances of its use. In the narration of an incident, it depends on the narrator which mode of language the narrator chooses to employ. So if both the thieves are talking, they will say, I had a gala time hitting the stone at the police and then I ran away. But if the chief of the police is explaining the same incident, then they casted a stone at the police and then absconded. Absconded, ran. It's a formal language, it is a formal usage. So stylistic meaning comes from the word of circumstantial use of the language as well as the position socially in which the individual who is uttering the sentence is embedded in. So let's take another example of it. Now, when we are talking about stylistic devices, we will talk more on the aspect of formal, informal language. So informal writing and language, it is a type of writing and language which does not have to adhere to the established formal rules of grammar and speech. Informal language and writing accepts, tolerates and permits the use of things like colloquialism, cliches, slang, improper broken syntax, incomplete sentences, sentence fragments and other grammatical prohibitions that are not tolerated when formal writing and language are necessary and indicated. So colloquialism, cliches. What is colloquialism? The informal use of a formal language is colloquialism. Informal words and phrases that are conversational, everyday words and phrases that are acceptable in informal writing. And why are they acceptable in informal writing? Because they are very socio-culturally defined. They will be defined between, also when the conversation is taking place between singular crowds and not crowds in pluralistic numbers, then colloquialism is allowed. Colloquialism is not allowed when a formal gathering or a congregation is in order. You have to address a pluralistic surrounding. Your socio-cultural audience is more than one. So when it's a conversation between two childhood friends, the language used will be different. Take it for example and then if the language is taking place between a student from one college and a student from another college, again there is going to be a certain amount of informality and colloquialism, but language superiority and accents will be maintained. If the conversation is taking place between a teacher and a student, depending on your relation with the teacher and the kind of question that you're asking, again the tone and tenor of the language is going to be different. Stylistic meaning is the meaning that is given to incidents and sentences provided their circumstances. And stylistic techniques differ from individual to individual and their social standing. So someone, let's say from Uttar Pradesh vis-a-vis someone from the United States of America will have a different way of stylistic explanation of the very same incident. And even though both will be in their own informal language and colloquialism will be maintained, the stylistic devices will still be different. Alright, let's see what is a formal language and an informal language and their different portions. Formal language is used when you have to take into precedence situations that are serious, that involve people we don't know well. Informal language is more commonly used in situations that are more relaxed and involve people we know, as well as involve people we know with the same socio-cultural background. See, the stress on socio-cultural is so important because the use of limited colloquialism in every socio-cultural boundary is fixed. In certain cultures, a particular kind of slang is allowed, but a particular kind of slang is not. So, depending on your social cultural gathering and the people and the relation that you have with those people, your stylistic meanings change. And therefore, stylistic meaning is what you accord, it is something that you give personally with your cultural, ethical background. It is the meaning that you embed within sentences given your own background. And therefore, stylistic meanings can be of multitudes because people's socio-cultural backgrounds are so myriad and varied that the stylistic techniques just keep on differing, especially in a country like ours. They keep on differing. Formal language is more common when we write. Informal language is more common when we speak. I generally do not adhere to this kind of a difference between formal and informal language in terms of writing when it comes to stylistic meaning. Depending on who is speaking to whom and what circumstances are being described, formal language can be used while speaking as well. Okay. One of the basic tenets of writing and authorship is to tailor language and write for the intended audience. Formal writing and language is often composed with longer, more complex sentences and phrases with details and descriptions about the main ideas. Formal language tends to be more objective, without personal emotions, feelings, beliefs that are acceptable in informal language and readings. Formal language is without or with only a rare occurrence of some forms of punctuation, like exclamation points that convey a strong emotion. Again, in formal language, deletion of strong personal emotions are cease to exist. It is free of colloquialism, slang, figures of speech, cliches, improper and broken syntax. Improper syntax. What would improper syntax mean? Improper syntax would mean phrases like, if you know what I mean, it was like this, and I was like, what? So all of these sentences are actually colloquialism which you insert in your informal language, and you'll be surprised how much you speak to me in informal English. However, a formal language is, in my opinion, I was suggesting that what he meant made me feel so and so. So these are the very transverses of the colloquialism that you use in your daily life. I was abhorred at his reaction. So these are all very formal stylistic techniques of putting very normal day-to-day slang in effect. So colloquial language and informal language basks in the glory of informality, slang. Now, figures of speech is something a lot of people say is not included in formal writing. I would advise you to not refrain from using important figures of speech, because things like puns and hyperbole is exaggeration. These are, I feel, excessively important. Even signing dosh are important for a very refined language to come across. So it is, in fact, a very, signing dosh is a very good manner. It's a very refined form of English to put your point across and show that you have a lot of control over the language. There are certain figures of speech like onomatopoeia, alliteration, which are more poetic in nature, and when used in colloquial language actually tend to be very scathing and of a low standard. That is not the case when it comes to the other figures of speech. They add a lot of stylistic high definition to your sentences. So today we did stylistic meaning. Tomorrow we will be doing effective meaning. I hope you're making notes, because in case if you aren't, I swear I'm going to come in your nightmares and ask you to make notes of the same. I promise you I'm going to put these in your exams. So you better now sit down to study. All of you, each one, study.